episode 27. Here we go. But before here we go, I want to go back one episode to episode 26, and I need to clarify because I've been hit up by a few people who work in the farming industry, and they were 100% correct to hit me up because I made a point of saying during that episode that some hunters are ethical and other hunters are not, and that I don't believe in painting the majority with the actions of a few. And what I should have done is said the same thing about farming or factory farming. And maybe I should have chosen a different term other than factory farming, but I figured or assumed that it was the term that most people would understand what I was talking about. And in that lies the ability, or the possibility, I should say, of obfuscating the point I was trying to make. And the point of what I was trying to make was that I just wanted to be objective and honest about the choices that we make. Whether you rely on farming or whether you are a hunter and are doing your best to remove yourself from anything that looks like traditional factory farming. Bottom line, at the end of the day, I have no problem with how people choose to approach anything that I covered, whether you want to be involved in that process or you want to detach. The only thing I have a problem with is people doing or making those decisions with their eyes closed. That's it. That's really what I was trying to do, was just to be objective. And I should have potentially picked a few more words. So to those of you that reached out, thank you for doing so. You were correct in doing so. And now let us move on to episode 27 with a guy I've known for quite some time. I would say, yeah, I've known him at least 10 years. Worked with him for quite a few. Have stayed good friends even after we drifted apart geographically and didn't have the chance to work with each other anymore. But his name is Chris Spealler. And the most important thing that you should know about Chris Spealler is that he's short. And that's what you get, Chris, for making fun of me during the podcast, because I get the intro and you don't get to say anything. Now, Chris is an amazing guy. He explains who he is and what he believes and what he's up to much better than I ever could. So I'm not even going to attempt it. He is for reference, he is the owner of CrossFit Park City. He is also the owner of Icon Athlete, and I will put up the links to both of those in the descriptive text about this episode. And that is it. Let's get into it. Episode 27, coming at you.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
It's funny. I know you and I, we did the Icon podcast, and I think we probably talk about this or have talked about it once or twice, but it's the same conversation that comes up as we try to figure out when and where we met each other.
Yes.
I don't know if we've ever had a great answer, but when I was thinking about that, a crystal clear memory that I have of you is the first time that I knew that I hated you / that I was very angry with you.
Perfect.
And that was at the first ever CrossFit Games on the run when you were so far ahead of me that I didn't know it was you at the time because I don't think we had met at all.
No.
But I just saw this person so far ahead of me that I just wanted to catch them so I could choke them to death. And then that person happened to be you.
Imagine that. I'm going to tell you something, Andy. I didn't even know you were running, probably because you were so far behind me. But
I'm going to withhold my colorful comments on that one. Yes. There's a picture. I don't know who has the picture, but yeah, I mean, running, first off, I'm a little bit taller than you. I'm a little bit heavier than you.
Yeah.
You're going to get me every single time when it comes to moving over uneven terrain, but I'm going to get you every single time when it comes to reaching for the next rung on the ladder. So
agreed.
Somewhere in between the two.
Some give and take, right?
Yeah, whatever you got to do. So yeah, I distinctly remember that. Who knows when we first met? And then I was thinking, man, we actually traveled a substantial portion of the U.S. together, teaching at the CrossFit level 1 seminars, teaching the conceptual stuff and teaching people the movements.
Yeah.
And your background kind of always fascinated me. So instead of me murdering it, because actually what I would do is I would also make things up that I found to be interesting. So I'm going to let you get to take it for a minute and just give me the give me as in depth as you want to into who Chris Spealler is.
Oh wow. I mean, that's a loaded question, Andy. But from the time that I met you, I guess I was on level 1 staff, and that started in 2008 is when I started. Actually, Andy, this I don't know if you remember this. One of the first times I had like more interaction with you was at my level 2. You were actually one of the um, I guess like the proctors there. You graded me. It was you, Sherwood, Castro, and I think Nicole Carroll was there, and you guys were like grading us on our level 2. So that
That's a
may have
rough
been,
crew. I'm going to tell you right there that
yeah,
that's a rough audience to go.
yeah. I remember it well, and I remember you were hiding behind a pair of these like cool white sunglasses in
Okay.
the.
Oh no, hold on. You were or I was, because I've never worn white sunglasses in my entire life.
You were.
No.
You were hiding behind some sunglasses,
Okay.
and
That is
but
possible. The fact that they were white,
white,
not
impossible,
actually
never.
possible.
Well, that's in my memory.
All right.
but yeah. So I worked seminars, and it all kind of happened at once. Like I found this CrossFit thing in 2006, and started doing it in the Globo gym, and then shortly after that, went to my
Well,
level
before that,
1.
though, so hold on. I don't want to interrupt you, but tell
Well,
me
it's
about
okay.
before that, because like
It's
where are
much
you from
cooler.
and how did you actually find CrossFit?
Yeah, so I grew up on the East Coast outside of Philadelphia. I grew up kind of close to Westchester, Pennsylvania. And I was, into sports growing up. I was, shocker for those of you guys that are not ready for this, I was a small kid. And I played all sorts of sports. Like I grew up playing soccer, running track, playing lacrosse, but I really gravitated toward wrestling. And partly because, it seemed fair because you could wrestle guys your own size. And it's funny because CrossFit's not like that at all. But yeah, so I started off with that and really found myself attracted to that, wrestled all the way through middle school, high school, and then into college. And then once I got out of college, I kind of was lost in the sense, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I moved out to Utah. I'd always wanted to move back to the mountains. I was born out here, and I just love the mountains. They're way cooler than not the mountains. And
I have to agree, given my
yeah,
recent also.
I mean, yeah. If you guys haven't ever been to the mountains, you need to go. And I'm a firm believer that the mountains are much better than the water. I know some people will disagree, but it's so much better.
I'm going to say that they each have their hidden challenges and hidden rewards.
Okay,
You
I'll go
just
with
don't know how
that.
to swim that well. So
No. Yeah. Why do you say that?
yeah,
Because I
so
grabbed you at the 2012 CrossFit Games and said, "Andy, teach me how to swim."
uh, that
I
was
remember that.
generally a subtle indicator. Yeah, for sure. Where'd you go to school and what'd you study?
I went to school at a little school called Lock Haven University in Pennsylvania, and it's about 40 minutes east of Penn State. And there's nothing to do there but wrestle. So technically, I went to school and graduated with a commercial recreation degree, which really means I went to school to wrestle for 5 years.
Nice.
Yeah. if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
fair. So it's interesting. My oldest son now is 14, turning 15 this year, which in and of itself, to me, is like holding a 45-pound plate directly out in front of me and letting it go, but it doesn't hit the ground. Like I cannot believe that next year's his first year in high school, and we have conversations about. He's like, Dad, I don't know what I want to do, and I try to tell him like that's okay. You have time,
yeah.
and even if he doesn't know what he wants to do when it gets time to go to college, like, hey, you still need to go to college and you can figure it out. So I think he'll
Yeah.
actually be refreshed to hear that he's not the only person who doesn't have it completely, because he hears people talking to me about the path that I took. And
Right.
I would say I was very crystal clear on what it is that I wanted to do, but I think that's also very atypical. And I think it freaks him out a little bit that he hears me
Yeah.
talking about it in that way. So it's good to hear that someone who is, much as it pisses me off, successful as you, you wanted a little bit with the tide. So that's cool. Okay. So you graduated from college, didn't know what you wanted to do. You got a bike
Yeah.
again.
So then I went, so I moved to Park City, Utah. Then I did an internship here, and I thought it was going to be super cool because it sounded like real adventure based, like take companies out for team building. And it really ended up being a ton of time behind a desk, which I realized I hated. Um, so I did that for, the 3 or 6 months that I needed to. And then that summer, I like fully turned into this kind of like mountains bum, ski bum kid. And I did everything from working in like ski repair shops to managing them to I was a bike mechanic. I sold skis. I did personal training on the side. I would do like odd jobs like masonry work with my buddies or sleep in line at Sundance to get tickets for someone and get paid for it. Just like super odds
You
and
were exploring the
ends.
space for sure. If you were
Yeah.
sleeping in line for tickets.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did that for like 4 or 5 years. And I remember during that time, I met my wife, Sarah, and ended up getting married. And there was like a real struggle there because I think as dudes, we have this sense of obviously like needing to provide for our family and for, our spouse. And like, I think it's just the way that we're made, the sense of provision and protection. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I think I had just found CrossFit and we had just gotten married the summer before and Sarah I think she was doing student teaching and I was still working at the ski shop. And, I even went to
Sounds
like,
like you guys were, had a scraping it
oh
together.
my
To make
gosh.
it, for sure.
Oh gosh. Making 13K a year, just crushing it. So it was like a really awesome time looking back, but also at the time really challenging because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, man, I need to make money. So I looked into like selling insurance and I think I was going to take a test or I did take a test and I failed. And it was just like this crazy time. I was going to open up a mobile bike repair shop out of the back of my truck. And then that, changed paths. And this buddy of mine, I was grabbing breakfast at his house one morning and I had just found CrossFit, maybe a couple months before. And I was doing this thing called Young Life, which is this big non-denominational outreach for high school kids and just kind of trying to figure it all out and still working at the shop. And this one guy called me out and he's like, hey, what would you do if you want to do anything? What would you do? I was like, well, I'd probably just keep doing Young Life, because I enjoy it. And I would open a CrossFit gym. And he straight up was like, well, then why don't you? And I couldn't find an answer. And I just looked at him and I was like, well, because I can't. And he was like, why? And I had no reason why, other than I just didn't think I could. And he really encouraged me to take the step. And so I got a credit card with a $5,000 limit and bought a plane ticket to Golden and took my level 1 and affiliated.
And you guys affiliated pretty early on. Like I was looking at your website because you own CrossFit Park City.
Yep.
And you affiliated in 2007.
Yep.
And in the description, it says you were the first CrossFit gym in Utah.
We were, yeah.
And for people who aren't familiar with that world, I used to be very deep in that world, and now I have obviously a much more outside perspective. But for people who are familiar with what CrossFit is now, from my opinion, what I will say is what it was then was substantially different.
Yeah.
Just due to the size. And when you're talking about being the first affiliate in a state, you got onto the train pretty early, I would say.
Yeah, super early. I think there were maybe like 130 affiliates around the world, and now there's something like 15,000.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, there's probably 130 affiliates in the greater San Diego area that we moved away from mid last year.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd be surprised if there weren't more than that, actually. But so, yeah, okay. My favorite question to ask people, and actually to myself and to my kids, I love why when they say they can't do something,
Yeah.
to throw that right back at them, because if you actually listen to it and take it for what it is, you got nowhere to hide. There's a
No.
spotlight on you, and it's like, well, can I reach in my back pocket here real fast and pull out an excuse that's worked for me?
What can I say to Dad that will make him believe that I can't do this?
Yeah. So, okay, so you affiliated in 2007. What year was the first CrossFit Games? Was it 2007?
It was. I affiliated in, I think, April or May of 2007, and in June went to the CrossFit Games.
Which had a different entry protocol
Yeah,
than the current year's
as in
games.
you show
The
up.
proof of that being, well, yeah, I was going to say the proof of that being that I competed in the first year's CrossFit Games.
Andy Stumpf,
Legitimately
Games
finished.
competitor.
I'm on the board.
Yep.
I am a games competitor. I finished 10th out of 9 competitors. So I'm on there though. No, I remember sitting there with my wife. It's hard to describe to people who see it on ESPN
Oh my
what
gosh.
it used to be.
Yeah.
But there was an open rower in the rowing workout, and I remember looking over
that's
at Dave.
right.
I was like, "Hey man, do you mind if I hop in?" He's like, "Yeah, go for it." And that's how I ended up doing that, and then got my ass handed to me by you on the run. Where'd you end up finishing that first year?
I think 4th. Not the podium.
Pretty good. Not
Didn't
the
make
podium. Yeah,
The
4th.
third
is
loser.
Definitely the third loser. I'm glad we have the same mentality about that. But hey, you know what? 10th is even farther
It
down.
is.
God, that irritates me because I was only 5 places behind you then, and that's the closest I've ever come in my entire life to being able to compete with you when it comes to exercise. It only got
Except
worse
I
after that.
can't jump off cliffs in a wingsuit, so we're even.
Yeah, but that's probably a good thing from a statistical perspective. I wouldn't teach you if you asked me to. So, okay, you must have been hitting it pretty hard then, because you had that was the beginning of your competitive career.
Yeah.
How many years did you end up going to the games after that?
As an individual, I went 7 times, and then as a masters individual once. So I guess 8. I feel bad saying this. It's no discredit to anybody that is a masters competitor, but for me, in my mind, I went to the CrossFit Games 7 times.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
fair. And I also think that people who hear that may not understand exactly what that entails. And I only understand it from a peripheral perspective because, again, working for CrossFit headquarters, I was around you guys all the time,
Yeah.
which I actually think was wildly unhealthy for me, considering I can't not compete in everything that I do, and constantly being surrounded by people who are training and competing in the games and getting your ass handed to you.
It's humbling.
I spent a lot of time just crying in the closet with a bottle of Chardonnay, trying.
Just dishing it back to us verbally.
I mean, you got to go with your strong
Yeah.
points. And I'll tell you what, it actually, I'm being dead serious. I think it actually was a little bit healthy for me when I stopped hanging around with people that were that competitive about that activity, because it allowed me to recalibrate. And I've actually started enjoying training much more than I did when I was in that environment around all of you that were doing it 24/7.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's funny you say that because, I think there's been a real shift for me. In the past, I last year I went to the games as a masters, but just kind of, I guess unintentionally, I guess you could say, but yeah, I find myself enjoying training in the process much more now than previously, just because it's not all about the placing. It's just about the process, and honestly, just kind of like embracing a little bit of the suffering during the workout, which I don't know. I think you could probably agree to this. There's some piece of me that enjoys that, and it's nice to be able to enjoy it for what it is.
I think it's my favorite. Yeah, I think it's my favorite part is that, I think there's something to be said that before starting an activity, whatever it may be, if you're like a little bit, I guess, queasy, or your stomach feels a little bit unsettled because you know what you're getting into, to me, that's a true north of I'm heading in the right direction. And I would get that, and I still do get that. And I think that there's a lot of personal development and growth to be found there. But talk about the grind. You got to tell me at least a little bit and explain the grind of what it actually takes to compete at that level for 7 years.
Gnarly. I feel bad talking about like this to someone with your background, because I feel like it's not even close to what you guys went through. But
Well, it's okay. So that's your problem, not mine.
at any rate,
So narrative in nature. Believe me, you're not missing out on anything by not having the background that I did. So yeah, I'm actually more the work ethic that you have, and I mean, I'm obviously asking you a question that I have a little bit of an understanding of, but I'm hoping that it'll provide some more insight for others. But it's pretty impressive, and I would say it's on par with the work ethic of people that I worked with like that dedication and what I would say the quality of life sacrifices that you made to achieve that level. So I think it'd be good for people to hear about.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I appreciate that, Andy. But I think for me, I was kind of lucky in that I sort of evolved with CrossFit and competing. It's, in 2007, kind of through 2009, there was this sort of vibe where it was still really young, and if you were just sort of this standout athlete that you had experience with some of the things before and you had a couple screws loose, you were willing to work really hard, you could still go to the CrossFit Games. And it was like that. And then 2010 to 2012, it kind of changed. It started getting more serious. There were qualifiers and programming became, money came on the scene a little bit. Not a ton, but especially, 2012, there was some substantial prize winnings and stuff. And so programming, coaching, and so that started to come into play. And now volume for your training came into play. And that turned into, what might be like 2 to 3 hours a day of training, kind of reorganizing your life a little bit to make sure that that was a priority and you had to stay on top of it. And you were doing things that you didn't like to do, but it made you better. And then after that, and I feel like kind of after 2012 and on, it got real serious. And when in 2014, my last year competing as an individual, I mean, that's what everything revolved around. I was still working, teaching seminars at the time. So my biggest training days were like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because I was home. And those would be usually me in the gym from about 9:30 a.m. to about 1 or 1:30 p.m. And then when I got home, it didn't really end. It was, recovery, taking a nap on the couch, doing recovery stuff and ice baths and Normatec and rolling out and getting massage work done, and making sure you're eating enough food. And at its peak,
consuming, would that be a good word for
definitely.
it?
And, there were times like where I would work a seminar on the weekends and I would do workouts at lunch. And then I remember one time I had to stay around for almost 3 hours after the seminar just to get the rest of my training done. And, while most of the people are like-minded, so they understand what you're doing, even though they might not be in the same space. So they were super supportive and would either wait around or I would meet them at dinner or something. So there were some times where, sacrifice is definitely, it's a selfish lifestyle. If people ever wonder about that, it's all about you and your training and maximizing your human performance and not much about anybody else around you.
Well, what I would say, or from what I've seen, is it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but you just won't go to the games.
100%. And in fact, for people, it's funny, I was talking to some people I work with, and we're just trying to really define, like who we are with this online programming that we do. And it's like, I think there's this huge void. There's this huge gap where there are people that, like you and I have gone through this cycle of training, like we've done the CrossFit stuff and we've done it for long enough and kind of did a little bit of the competition, or we're at least around it in a little bit. And we've evolved and like grown out of that phase. But we also know how, like, if we want to do some more, we can. If we don't want to, we don't. There's this big no man's land, because I think there's this big chasm right now where people, they do CrossFit or they train at whatever they do, and then they want more, but they don't know how much more. So the only thing they go to are these just massive, like crazy volume. Well, I'm going to do what the guy that won the CrossFit Games did, or I'm going to do what Lance Armstrong did, or I'm going to do what, the Navy SEALs do. And it's like, whoa, there is a middle ground here where
I'm going to say all three of those are bad
yes,
ideas.
they're horrible ideas, but people do it.
Unless you're Lance Armstrong, you actually are a SEAL, or you're the dude who won the CrossFit Games. Then it's a good idea.
But people, I feel like they have to try to emulate that, or that's because they want to do it more. Well, that's the guy that does it more, so I'm just going to do that. But I think there's this gap in the middle that we can fill, and we can say, you know what, you can do a little bit more, or you can spend a little bit more time doing that thing, but it can be within reason, and it can be healthy, and it can be something that allows you to still live your life the way that you want to, and it doesn't have to be consuming. It doesn't have to be selfish.
It's funny you use the word healthy. Again, from an outside perspective, from somebody who never had the desire, work ethic, pain threshold, or did I already say desire and work ethic to work out as hard as you guys did, and girls, because the female CrossFit athletes could whip my ass left, right, and center. Yeah, I have seen it from the outside perspective, and I've seen it, I guess, more recently with some of the, let's say, the younger athletes, maybe even people in the late teens and in their early 20s who are so consumed with trying to get to the games, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. Make that perfectly clear. Like, I think it's a noble pursuit for sure. You're finding out about yourself. You're pushing yourself very hard. All things that I absolutely agree with.
There's a right way to do it.
To see that there's a right way to do it. And I would almost say that by sacrificing a lot of life experiences, so you make sure that you get your squat session in, I would almost say that it's the opposite of being healthy, depending on the lens that you look at it through. Like, yes, you'll be really in shape, but I think some of them go too far, like they're overtrained. But there's no, I guess the term would be balance,
100%.
right? There's no balance between physical capacity and then life experience to go with that. And I would say that, to me, like, if you only have physical capacity and you have no life experience and you're choosing not to get life experience for that capacity, I would almost call that unhealthy, even though it's totally anecdotal. And there's no way
I think
to
you're right,
that.
though. I mean, talk to anybody that's the best in the world at one thing. There is no balance, right? And not like,
you're either laser-like focused, or you're not on the podium.
Or even like, it's the same thing from the community you come from. Like, if I was going to say, hey, Andy, I want to enlist in buds, but I'd also like to be the best gamer I can. Be like, that's not gonna work, bro.
Not possible. Most of buds is just an online course anyway, so you can probably do it in your off time. It's correspondence.
Like, you're all in. You know what I mean? Vice versa. Like, if you want to be the best gamer, bro, then guess what you need to do? Start playing video games more.
Yeah. Well, at least for some phase in your life. And then the problem I see with speaking from the community I come from is that if you don't later on back that off a little bit, you get to the end of a career and you realize that you were so all in and you were so defined by that you get out the other end of the tunnel that you could only see, or maybe you couldn't even see that there was a light at the end of it, but you were in a tunnel going forward, and then you have nothing. And I see people get to that point and they struggle, and it's unfortunate. And if I'm being totally honest, I also hope that a lot of the people who are paying their bills and making their bread and butter through the CrossFit world, I hope that they are thinking about the future as well too, because your body is going to time out at some point. And I don't care how good the person who's winning is this year, in a decade, they're probably not going to qualify.
And like, not to be pessimistic or anything like that, but like you're saying, you guys better have your ducks in a row, in the sense of knowing who you are. I think most importantly, not being so identified with what you do. And then also, like, because of that, when that day comes, people someday, Matt Frazier, the guy that wins the CrossFit Games now twice in a row, and Rich Froning that won it 4 times, like, someday, guess what? Somebody's going to be better. And although those guys will always have like a name etched in the history of it, like, they'll be forgotten or not even known by a whole new generation. And that's just the reality of it. And if people don't have an understanding of who they are and what they're really identify with, they just get crushed when that day comes that is inevitable, and you can't be at the highest level anymore. And then what do you do? And then who are you? And I think those are questions that people have to really ask themselves, as hard as it is, while they maybe are living a life that's unbalanced to pursue something that they want to. those are questions that still need to be addressed for when things are done.
I would say it's almost probably best served to ask yourself that question before you peak or while you're peaking.
Yeah. I think people perform better anyway then if they're grounded in more than just what they're doing. There's a deeper sense
Yeah.
of purpose.
Yeah, and I think it would let you live in the moment a little bit more too, because you already have a plan set out for the future. So it would free up even more, hard drive space between the ears to focus on exactly what it is that you want to do. I see a lot of military guys, especially the career path that I came from. They'll get to 20 years, and I honestly don't know how many guys I heard they're at the 19-year mark. Like, yeah, I just started on my bachelor's. Like, dude,
You've had 20 years.
well, they were busy, right? And they were
Yeah.
busy and they were selfish. I'll be the first to admit that the lifestyle that I lived, and I'm still to this day dealing with the secondary and tertiary effects of that, whether with my relationship with my wife, um, you know, my kids at the tail end of my career saw a little bit of that.
Yep.
And it's very easy for me to say, I had to be that focused because I wanted to come home at the end of the day, but it
Right.
was a choice in that moment that was super selfish, and it did make me better at my job.
Yep.
But I think I've said this before, and I think I said it recently. One of the best things that I think happened to me was actually getting hurt, because it forced me to very objectively, physically and metaphorically, laying flat on my back, going, okay, what the hell is next?
Yeah.
And so I started looking at options, and that's actually how I started working for CrossFit. It was about a year after that, after using that training methodology for rehab,
Yep.
meeting Greg when I was home on vacation in Santa Cruz. And I literally looked up the website. I was like, what? This is
It's right
6
here.
blocks from my parents' house. Totally random, you know? But that was the off ramp for me that made it okay for me, or made it, not okay is not the right word, made it easier for me to step away from the military,
Yep.
because I had something else. And I have watched quite a few people who do not think about that until the 18-year mark, the 19-year mark, 19 years and 11 months.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just started on my bachelor's. It's like, bro, you are behind the 8 ball. And then it forces them or channelizes them to making poor decisions when it comes to their occupations afterwards.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And there's a lesson to be learned there for sure.
Yeah. I think this is what's the hardest thing for me now, and this may be way off topic, but you
I already like it.
Yeah. So I'm knocking on the door at 39. How old are you, Andy? You and I are like right there. We're within a
I
year.
am 40 years old. I am your senior in every way.
In every way. So we're a
Height,
year apart.
age.
Good looks.
I mean, that's obvious. We don't need to say.
Totally. But here's what I find is the hardest thing right now. So, and I don't know if I'm having a midlife crisis or what, Andy, but like I am trying to find the balance now between thinking ahead, right? And like being wise with the work that I do, the finances, like what does, because kind of we're in a similar position where like what we have going on right now, I don't know what that looks like in 5 years. I don't know what that looks like in 10 years. It's like we can come up with game plans and stuff, but it's still like this really think like fluid situation kind of, So I'm trying to be really wise with what that looks like in 5 years, 10 years when I'm 50, 55, but I'm also really trying hard. My kids are a little younger than yours. I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, to enjoy the moment now and not get so caught up in planning ahead or saving for this at the expense of missing the now that I have with my kids. You know what I mean? Like I
know at an extremely deep level exactly what you're talking about. The conversations that I have with myself, I struggle with exactly the same thing. My least favorite question is, what do you do for a living? It's like, I don't know, which isn't a good starting point for a 5-year plan, Like, so the most important piece of information probably in your life, but I know specifically in combat, is where are you? Nothing can be planned if you don't know where you are.
Yep.
You can't call for help. You can't maneuver. You can't really shoot if you don't know where all of your people are. And I don't know where I am right now. I mean, I think I know who I
Yep.
am as a person, but I have those same thoughts. Like, you know, okay, I hear people say you need to have X amount of money in the bank, but if I only focus on having X amount of money in the bank, I can't take my kids to go
Right.
snowboarding, and I don't want to. You know what I mean? Like it's this constant balance of what what it is it's going to look like. I don't have the answers either, man. But literally today, I just got a
Yeah.
split snowboard,
Awesome.
which I know you're a
It's okay. You
skier.
got
We
to split for a
we don't
reason
have the
because you're trying to
time
make
to.
it into skis. It's cool.
Yeah, we don't have the time to discuss how disgusted I am with you
It's
that you
cool.
ski.
Snowboarding is like the
Table
hipster
that
thing
from
to do. It's all right.
snowboarding is for people who are too good at skiing. I think that's what I'll say. Even though I suck at skiing, total disclaimer. But so I took, I got all the stuff and I got the backcountry stuff that I need because that was really the goal behind it. Is I'm loving snowboarding on the resort, but I can't wait to go somewhere. And I just like making my own path. I think that's true
Yeah.
within life and just
Explore.
navigation in general. And I got put the skins on it. The whole thing is cool. It's like it's a
Yeah.
new skill to learn, which is the way that I look at it. It's a new challenge. So I skinned up the mountain today. I think it was probably 1,900 feet, something like that. And the whole time I'm skinning up the mountain, I'm just having not intentionally, but my mind just keeps coming back to, what are you doing? Like, what's the next step? And maybe from the outside to people, it looks like I have my shit together on that perspective. But I think every single person comes to a point in time where they struggle like that
Yeah.
because the worst decisions I've ever made in my life were about money.
Yeah.
I stuck with a job for far too long, being unhappy with it because of money. And I'd rather, like when it comes to Christmas time is a good example at our house, I'd rather take my kids and do things than buy them things,
Yeah.
which doesn't, equally, I guess it drains the savings, but I think there's more, I think I can do more for my kids and for myself by going and doing things and maybe, I guess, shifting my balance a little bit more into the now than into the future. But man, believe me, at a very painful level, I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
midlife crisis. I think everybody gets to that point where they realize, like, huh, where are the priorities here?
Yeah. It's so weird. So Sarah and I just kind of went through that in a way. We've been trying to figure out, like, okay, what do we want, like, long term? What do we want for now? I think you and I actually had this conversation on the phone a little while ago, and we were like looking at maybe like we should buy a lot somewhere, or like put like a cabin on something where we have some place for the family to go, and because then it could be an investment. And so I'm kind of thinking that way, but then we're locked to it, and we made this decision, and I'm still overwhelmed by it. We were like, you know what, like, let's just bite the bullet and let's get one of those vans that we can roll just anywhere we want, and we're going to convert it into like a little light camper van.
Yep.
And I mean, they are not cheap, and it's not an investment like a house that I can resell in 5 or 10 years or whatever. And I was overwhelmed by it, but at the same time I'm like, what am I going to do in 10 years if I was thought, well, look at this cool condo I have. Or
Yeah.
instead, like,
And the
look at
difference,
all these things that I did with my family.
and the difference on your kids, like, oh yeah, we'd go to the condo in the summertime versus, hey, we've seen
All
48
these
out of the 50
places.
states,
And
driving.
yeah, but then there's like this guilt, and there's this weird, like, oh my gosh, like, I wonder if I made the right decision. I don't know. It's just, man, growing up is hard.
That's kind of why I refuse to do it, I guess. No, you know what I learned? Or no, the conclusion, not the conclusion, the feeling that I've come to is that I'm of the opinion that regardless, so say you go down that route for you and it doesn't turn out to be what you want it to be, and it's like, oh my God, it's this financial drain and it's not what you want it to be. Well, there's a couple things. One, you're going to learn from that.
Yeah.
Two, you're going to have the chance to come together as a family and work your way through it. But three, even like I said, you have your work ethic reminds me a lot of the work ethic of the people that I used to work with. There's nothing special about SEALs other than the fact that you're going to have to kill us to get us to stop. And if you
Right.
can embrace that mentality, you're going to be okay. Like you'll figure it
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean? Like I have no doubt in my mind that say that you determine that's the worst decision ever and it puts you back to square one. That's okay. Like you'll make it to square two. And that's the place when I start dealing with doubt or being worried, like, oh, I don't have enough saved, or what am I going to do about for my kids' college, or I don't, I need, my contract is coming up with this sponsor, whatever it may be.
Right.
I can worry myself sick over that, or I can realize that I largely have control over very little of it. And the thing that I have the most control over is the attitude that I take into it. And that's probably where I do the best. Like, bring it. Like,
Yeah.
I'll work my way through it and get where we need to be. And even, I actually think there's more to be gained and learned if it sucks than if it's easy.
Yeah, and two, like some things that I remind myself of just with experiences where, and most of it comes from athletics for me, is like, when was the last time I didn't figure it out? And it was never. You know what I mean? There's never a time where I didn't, like you said, work through it or buck up or whatever that is. There was never a time where I just like gave up, because I just don't think it's not an option. And also it's just, I don't think it's part of who I am or you are, the mentality we want to have. But it's a good reminder.
Yeah. What's crazy is I honestly think that might be like the most unknown, best kept secret. And it shouldn't be. Just don't give up.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of simple,
like,
right?
If you keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you just are willing to grind through or go around an obstacle that's put in front of you, I would rather teach that and make that the foundation of whatever education system you're in, as opposed to people being told that they're special, people being told that they deserve something, people being told that they're entitled to something. Like, how about this? How about you take all of those and throw them in the garbage can and put your work boots on and some gloves if you want to, if you got sissy hands, and get out there and actually work for it. Like, I honestly think that's the key, because it's so simple. If it was super complex, I would have a lot of hesitation and doubt, but I actually think that's what separates, in most instances, success from failure for a lot of people.
Yeah, and interesting, like having kids too in that time. And it's funny, like I think that sometimes with like, conversations that I remember my parents saying, or, it's like, oh, like you guys have it so much easier than we do, or, oh, we never got away with that. You hear that growing up. So I sometimes wonder, like, am I just saying the same things? But it is funny to see just the difference in the way that I think some of the younger generation has their mentality, or the way they're treated, or the way they expect to be treated versus the way that I grew up. And I don't know if it's just like a generational thing or a family thing, but that sense of like, it sounds kind of cliche, but like the whole entitlement with the millennials and stuff like that. And just, it's really interesting to have kids that are in that generation, and also trying to teach them, balancing the commitment to hard work and also letting them kind of be who they are and figure it out. That's a whole nother ball of wax as a dad, but it's teaching hard work
let me
is
know
like,
how to figure that one out.
Yeah, we'll be.
Write me a step
Yeah,
one
we
through
can
five.
we'll be co-authors on a new book to help you guys with perfect parenting.
Oh man, I don't know if that's going to be a bestseller or if the advice would be good, but I'm in on that.
It can be all
So
the
here's one
things that
for
we
you,
do to
because-
teach our kids how to work hard.
No kidding. Well, speaking about working hard, I'm gonna go back to the CrossFit world just a little bit, because I
Yeah.
get hit up. I get hit pretty often. People asking me questions about training,
Yeah.
and from a variety of spectrums. But are you still coaching classes at CrossFit Park City?
Yeah, I teach usually about 6 a week.
So you're a better person to answer those questions. And most of them that I get, there's two versions. One of them is, how do you train, which is an irrelevant question for anybody other than answering something about curiosity. But another one is the best way to get started. And in my opinion, at least, I did the Arnold routine for quite some time. Chest and tries, back and buys, and leg day was a run on the beach.
Never do
Somehow I
that.
talked myself into thinking that was leg day. Once I switched over and found CrossFit type training, functional training, whatever word people want to use that doesn't offend their palate, it's, for one, I think it scares a lot of people based off what they see. And I would say that probably The biggest success for CrossFit, again, this is just my personal opinion, is the games. And probably the biggest hindrance to CrossFit is also the games
Yep.
because there's not a lot of time necessarily to educate people on the difference. But
Yeah.
so, as an affiliate owner, and speaking on how you approach or deal with people coming through the door, because I do get asked quite often, what's the best way to get started? What do you got, man, for some recommendations? I mean, you live and breathe in this world. For somebody who just maybe they're coming off the couch, maybe they just want to try something new, where would you start people off?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, it's just go to an affiliate. It's the easiest way to get yourself educated on, especially if you want it to be the CrossFit thing. There's a lot of ways to get involved, but if you've never ever had any experience with anything like that before, going to an affiliate and kind of shop around. People I think they assume that CrossFit is CrossFit and it's a franchise, but it's not. So you guys could go to a good affiliate, you could go to a bad affiliate. So shop around a little bit, find one that you think they know what they're doing. You could take some one-on-ones with them to learn the basic kind of fundamental movements and then just work out in your garage. Or you could take some one-on-ones from them and jump in on classes. There's a lot that can be gained from you learning basically what they call the 9 fundamental movements of CrossFit, and then maybe a couple little things on top of that. If you know the nuts and bolts, you could find an online programming option and work out at your home. You can work out in an affiliate. You can make up your own workouts. And even though they might not be the best, the way that the program works is it's still going to be effective. It's still going to be better than what you're doing. So step one
For
is
sure.
honestly
You're
just
getting
show up.
80% of the benefit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just show up. Like walk in to an affiliate and see what their process to learn or start classes is, and just step in the door. And like it's they say it at some affiliates, but like check your ego, especially dudes. We see dudes come in that think they're like super hot shot, like, oh, I'm super strong and I'm real fit, and suddenly you're not real fit when you do things that are a little bit different. And that's okay. So just check your ego and just like soak it up, learn, and enjoy the hard work that gets into it. And from there, there's so many different avenues that you can take. But if you know the core things there, oh man, like you can do so much with it.
Yeah, I'd say the core stuff and then like a rudimentary, even basic understanding of just a clean diet, and you're going to get
Oh my gosh.
astronomical results.
Yeah.
Do you have to deal? Do you have to deal as an affiliate owner with a little bit of expectation management, like people coming in and they're like, "Hey, I want to be in the games next year"?
We don't at our demographic, we're, similar to you. We live in a mountain town. So a lot of people are super amped on things outside the gym. They're way more into, being better on their mountain bike or skiing or hiking or whatever that is. So we don't get much of that. I used to see that more at level ones. Some of the online programming I do will have people that are pretty ambitious about competing at high levels, which is great because we can help them do that. But I don't see that so much at the affiliate level here. Rarely see that.
I think it's actually a good sign. When I owned the CrossFit affiliate in Coronado,
Yeah.
it's bizarre to me the expectations that people will have. And one thing when it comes to training, one thing that I would get often is people would come in, right? There's all shapes and sizes. Sometimes we would get some of the bigger sizes, and
Yep.
they would want like instantaneous results. And it's bizarre to me that you have to remind people that it takes a long time to get really, really out of shape and sedentary.
Yeah.
Don't think that you're going to short circuit the route back. Like you have a long, hard road to hoe to get yourself back to where you want to be. So just as much time as it took you to get to where you are, it's probably going to take you longer to get out of that.
Yeah, you're playing the long game. Yeah, and everyone should. Regardless of how fit they are, if people want to be doing that for a long time, and I just mean doing that as in like you want to take care of yourself and be like healthy and fit, you want to be exercising and you want to be healthy and fit for your lifestyle, you better play the long game, not the like instant gratification here and now.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how do you train now?
Oh man, I'm like way, way less than ever before. Because I just want to live. I love training for the reasons we talked about. I like working hard. I like, that little bit of adversity, if you want to call it that, in the workouts sometimes. But my workouts, I'm in and out of the gym in less than an hour. I have to warm up pretty good because my bones are old. I might be
Stop
knocking on the door at 39, but it's a well-used 39-year-old body. um, so I warm up a good bit. My workouts last anywhere from, gosh, like on the shorter side, like 8 minutes, longer side, 25 minutes, depending on what I'm doing. And then from there, usually I have to do something to kind of cool down afterwards. But I'm in and out of the gym in 45 minutes to an hour every day. And then I
Which is
like
the
you,
beauty of that program, what
yeah,
it was originally designed to do,
it
right? 23 hours
works.
outside of the walls of the gym, go
Yes.
focus for an hour, and then live your life outside of it.
And that's yeah. So like, I really like riding dirt bikes. I like riding my mountain bike, especially downhill, so I have to pedal uphill.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I like all that stuff. I love skiing. So I like to put my fitness to use outside the gym. And I'm at a point now where I'm not willing to sacrifice hours in the gym to, you know, lose out on things outside the gym. So I guess sacrifice time outside the gym for time inside the gym is what I meant to say.
Yeah, it seems like quality of life and experiential type stuff has more of an importance than where your name might fit up on a whiteboard in the gym.
Yeah, yep. Had that time, been there, done that. And for those of the people that are still there, that's awesome. You know, like if that's what they're passionate about, like I fully support that, but it's just not where my headspace is.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Speaking of outside activities, what is this? I hear you shot the total archery challenge last year.
Oh my gosh. So
Because
let
I'm
me fill
interested
you
because I'm
in.
coming out there this year, and I hope you're doing it again.
I will totally do it with zero experience again. So I went out there. I bumped into a guy at the games, and they call him Dan the Fitness Man, and he is way into archery. I think he's like some archery ninja.
Okay.
And
Do you happen to know his last name?
I don't. His name's Dan though, and I think he's from Oregon, and
Okay.
he was
Dan,
working.
the fitness man from Oregon /
Yeah.
Archer.
And I bet he listens to you. So Dan, thank you for the connection to Hoyt, because he connected me with like him, and then I was walking around Snowbird, and I bumped into Brian Call. Do you know Brian? Brian
No,
does
actually, I just did a podcast with him. Damn it,
yeah,
I meant to bring it up.
the Gritty Bowman. Yeah. So I bumped into Brian because
last week.
yeah, because Brian's a CrossFit guy. He believes in that kind of training for bow hunting and things like that. So I bumped into him 2 years ago at Snowbird while he was doing the archery challenge, and I was just cruising around with my family. I was like, what is going on here? And he bumped into me, recognized me, and was like, hey, you know, I CrossFit. Can I do a podcast? So long story short, I did a podcast with him, ended up getting a bow from Hoyt. And I literally had shot the thing probably, I don't know, for 30 minutes inside of a range. And I had it sighted into 20 meters with the first pin there. And
probably 20 yards, but
20
I like
yards.
where your head's
Okay,
at.
sorry, 20
and
yards.
With that pin sighted in,
yeah,
it's time to compete.
Exactly, because if you're sighted in at 20 yards, then you can just do whatever you want with the other pins. So I went out there having shot the bow, I don't know, for 30 minutes inside, and I went with Brian. Get this, okay? So here's the group I was in. Is me, Brian, the two owners of Mountain Ops. You know Mountain Ops? So those guys. And I think there was a couple other people, and Cameron Haynes. You know Cameron?
I know him as well.
Yeah.
I took him for a tandem, and I had dinner with him twice last week.
Okay, so I'm walking around, and everyone's like, Cam, what's up, Cam? What's up, Cam? And I have no idea who Cam is. And I just looked at Brian, and I was like, look, I know this is going to sound stupid, but I can tell Cam over there is a big deal. Like, why is he a big deal? And Brian just looked at me, and he is so cool about it. He is like, well, he's like arguably one of the best bow hunters in the world. And I was like, gotcha. So I went out there with my 20-yard sight just totally dialed in and proceeded to lose arrows left and right. And
did you say anything before, or did you just launch it? Because that was your chance right there to talk the most epic shit. And just like to be like, hey guys, I'm gonna go first, and I just want you to know this is the face that's gonna kick you into the dirt for the rest of the day, and then just airball it like 40 yards into the trees past the target.
Man. I did that, and there was some unethical hunting on my part that I learned about. I shot a foam deer in the face, and they were like, "Whoa!" So I learned all sorts of stuff, but I had a blast, man. So I have every intention of trying to get out there. I just need to buy myself some more arrows since I lost all of them.
Yeah. Well, your draw length is probably somewhere between 6 to 8 inches. So my daughter
It
might
is.
have some to
That's what
borrow.
happens. That's what happens when you have those stumpy little, arms.
Yeah. You know what? I might have the advantage over you on archery with the longer limbs.
Oh, you probably do just in the whole like shooting accuracy department.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
now I try to not go more than a day without shooting my bow.
Okay,
So
because the
it's
last time I shot mine was at the Total Archery Challenge.
the next time I want you to shoot it is at the one coming up. I think it's in either June or July. I just found out that I'm going to be going out there. I cannot wait to go.
The one at
I've never
Snowbird?
done anything like that. Snowbird is a ski resort, right?
Yeah. If it's the one that's in Utah, that's where it is, and it's a blast, man. It's so fun,
That's
and
what I've
we'll have
heard
to
from everybody.
find a
And if you
way.
can say that,
It's
if you can
awesome.
say that with no experience whatsoever, then
Oh,
that's
none.
awesome.
And part of it was with the guys I was with. They were so cool and so like understanding, like these ninjas, and like
Yeah.
that's all they do. And me, so I'll just show up next year with last year under my belt. Be good.
I mean, yeah, you're more experienced than me in that world.
All one of those events.
Hey,
Yeah,
one is a number larger than zero, which is
it is.
currently the number that
Winner.
I have under my belt when it comes to doing that.
Winner.
So, I got to go scoot up my kids here pretty soon, but I want you
Should do that.
to finish off by talking a little bit about Icon Athlete.
Yeah. What do you want to know? I mean,
What do you
it's
want me to know?
it's my world. So since leaving teaching seminars every weekend and traveling, my focus really, the gym does its thing, but really I just spend most hours of my day trying to help grow Icon Athlete, which is just an online programming service. So for people that are looking to get started in this fitness thing, for people that know CrossFit, for people that are just kind of dabbling in it, we are kind of that voice. That's what we want to be, is just those people that fill that gap that we talked about, where you're doing some fitness stuff, but you want a little bit more, but we're not looking to have this epic 6-hour a day program to try to go to the CrossFit Games or win the Ironman. We want to fill that gap. And there's a bunch of different choices you have there, basically 4 different kind of options of programming volume, and the way that we target those things vary a little bit differently. So we offer a free assessment for people to go on, and they can just fill out this assessment where they do these pretty simple exercises, and it gives you a suggested track that we might have you follow. And then you can jump in. You're part of the community. We do a bunch of live videos to be really interactive, and we just want to be that voice of reason, where we can help people do this and do it right, not back down from anything. We're really into that, understanding that whether you're the mom or dad at home that needs to wake up at 5 a.m. and work out in your garage to get it in, or you are trying to go to the CrossFit Games, like, we want to support that. And that's the community that we want to run. So we really enjoy the community vibe, and that's what we try to provide for people that sign up. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to be involved, but iconathlete.com is where you can find that assessment. It's free. You can check it out and hang out with us. We have people working out in their garages and barns and affiliates, and it's awesome. I love it. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, and a lot of fun.
Some of the coolest workouts I've ever done were miles from a gym. Like, just like you said,
Yes.
garage, barn, like looking around like, hey, that rock looks heavy. Go grab that thing. Like, and just
Go pick
using your
that up.
imagination, man.
Yeah, and what's cool is we offer, for people that are in that position, we offer at the bottom of one of those tracks. It's called the Unify track. We offer a garage gym version where all you need is a set of dumbbells, a jump rope, a box, a pull-up bar. You're golden, and you can get way more fit than you think.
Yeah, probably surprisingly more so than you think.
Yeah.
Well, right on, man. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thanks for linking up with me.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Andy. I appreciate it, man.
That is all for this week. I did not hit my Monday goal, but it's still this week. So I'm going to count that as a partial, I'm going to say 2/3 victory. I'm heading to SHOT Show. And for those of you that don't know what SHOT Show, or what the SHOT Show is, or what the SHOT Show stands for, I'm in the same boat. I actually don't know what SHOT stands for. It's basically a tactical convention/trade show in Las Vegas. I'm going to be there Tuesday through Thursday. If anybody is in the area and wants to link up, hit me up. And I'll be working with 511 Tactical. They are my footwear and apparel sponsor. If you guys are in need of some bomb-proof stuff that's not going to fail you in moments that matter, I would highly recommend you check their stuff out. One of my favorite items that they make that I've been wearing for a long time is their jeans. They make a pretty killer set of denim jeans. And I get precisely 0 cents for saying that. I actually just love the things, and I'm going to be wearing them out there. So come check them out. Thank you, everybody, for reaching out. Thank you again for, I try to say this every time. Thank you for everybody who's reaching out to me. I'll get back to every email that I can. Thank you for the feedback, both good and bad. Thank you for the reviews on iTunes. And thanks to everybody who is supporting the podcast through buying the shirts and the sweatshirts and the hats. I'm just going to take that money and put it right back into hopefully building the podcast and doing more cool things. Maybe get some airplane tickets for really interesting people to come out and do some face-to-face interviews, or maybe use it for airplane tickets so I can go somewhere and talk to some people specifically for the podcast. I don't know, but I'm going to put the money back into it and see how good we can make this thing. And it's not going to happen without your feedback. So thank you for everybody who took the time to write me a review. And if you haven't, go to iTunes, write a review. I know I've said it before, and I'm dead serious. It can be a great review, or it can be a dog shit review. I'd rather know how you feel instead of you making something up. And that's it. Next week, we're going to probably be coming, I would say, live from the SHOT Show, but it's not going to be live. It's going to be recorded and then put up, hope maybe the same day, but